Alright, welcome. This video might be a bit janky, but this is 4.4 sinusoidal graphs. Sinusoidal graphs we've touched on before, but we see right here we have sin or sine. So this is actually just a fancy word for a graph that looks like this. And if you've never seen this graph before, let's actually break it down. So we now want to graph trig functions. And we'll start with the basic one, just sine of x. We'll start with x. But a lot of times in the future, we'll actually use f of theta equals sine of theta. But we'll use x. Actually, we won't use x. F of theta equals sine of theta. The most basic like sinusoidal function. So I'm saying as I input theta, I want to get an output of sine theta. And this little cheat, but like instead of just drawing an xy axis, a lot of our axes now will be a short y, but with a really long x. Or this is now theta, this is like my y, my output. So let's actually look at a unit circle. So hopefully you have your unit circle out. I will get this, and I might even try to find a unit circle online. Sorry about this. This might be like a flashbang. This one, copy image. That's hard to see for you guys. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see this super well, especially with the dark background. But actually, we'll keep this just so like you aren't flashbanged by the other. So I could restart the video, but I'm just gonna push it through. But I want to graph sine of theta. Sine of theta. So let's actually start from 0. 0, theta, we're going to talk about in radians. Theta's in radians. We've always been talking about radians. So when I have 0, we want to reflect back. Think for a second, which coordinate value, your x or your y, is related to my sine value? Think back about it. And yeah, like we should see that our sine is actually my y. Y equals sine of theta. And that's just not, it's not just because it's a fact function. Like when we did the unit circle together, we saw that this value is my y. Because when I go down and make a little triangle like this angle is pi over 6. And sine is opposite, my opposite over my hypotenuse. My radius is 1. So like, what is my height? And my height is my y. So over here, what is my height? My height is 0. So my sine is 0. So we want to plug this in. At theta, at 0, my values is 0. So I want to have 0, 0. And we're going to do every other angle. So we do 0, pi over 4, pi over 2. We do steps of pi over 4. 0, 0 is my first point. Next up, at pi over 4, I see my y value is root 2 over 2. Root 2 over 2 is roughly 0.71. But I'm just going to make a little marker right here. 0.71. We'll make this just 1.7. We'll be like around here. This is my pi over 4 value. Next up, at pi over 2, you look at my y, we see that I'm at 1. I keep on going. I go at 3 pi over 4. So I'm just adding pi over 4 every single step. I split positive root 2 over 2. So positive 0.7. And next up at pi, I'm back down to 0. So I just graphed these 5 points so far. And I'm going to label every other as well. Pi over 2, 1. This is at pi, 0. And we see peculiar shape. It's not just a straight line, it's actually a nice curve. Almost like a parabola. And let's keep on going. 5 pi over 4, I'm at negative root 2 over 2. So I'm going to go negative now. At 3 pi over 2, I'm at negative 1. At 7 pi over 4, I'm at negative root 2 over 2. And back at 2 pi, I'm back at 0. So this is what? 3 pi over 2, negative 1, and 2 pi, 0. So I don't go straight down, actually start curving the other way. And we had two nice curves. This is our sine graph. You will get used to it. You will do a lot of practice with this. And you will, unfortunately, end up memorizing it. Not really unfortunately, but like just through a bunch of practice, you will end up memorizing this. And I'm not gonna frame like, oh, I will make you memorize it, but like the fact that we'll use so much practice with this, you will end up memorizing it. And the key things I want us to memorize, I'll start here, is general shape. To start, and like the 5 key points. And not just key points as in like, oh, third point is pi 0, but more of like how do we get there from our start? What does that point look like in our shape? So let's slowly break this down. So we have this nice curve. And I'm actually going to draw it one more time. I'm going to draw it over and over again until we memorize it. But we end up with this nice curve. And actually just keeps on going as well. Ooh, it looks like I'm erasing. Oh, okay, there. So yeah, we start at 0, 0, pi over 2, 1, pi 0, 3 pi over 2, negative 1, and then at 2 pi, 0. This is talking about the y value of my unit circle. So I'm just going to draw another plane circle. Imagine this unit circle next to it. My y value starts at 0, goes up to 1, goes back down to 0, and it goes down to negative 1. And this is my cycle. 0, 1, 0, negative 1. 0, 1, 0, negative 1. 0, 1, 0, negative 1. 0, 1, 0, and next one we'll see will be negative 1. That is my sine curve. And these 5 points, I'll make you draw these 5 points because what I need is one full cycle, one full circle, one full loop around. And before we get into some key vocab terms, we're actually going to talk about the cosine graph. Actually, I will let you guys, we'll talk actually about the vocab terms, and then a little activity for you before we went to the next video is I'm going to make your cosine graph. A cosine graph will be actually your x value. So look at the x values. I wrote the y values here. Like, what is my x values as you go around? And you could plot these 4 points, the 4 key points of 0, pi over 2, pi, and 3 pi over 2. And lastly, pi, like 2 pi again. If you feel like you don't quite have the shape, plug it in the in-between points. Pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. That's what I want you to do before the next video. But we'll actually go on to talk about some key features. So some key features that we have are the amplitude, amplitude is actually the distance from the mid line to the maximum / minimum. Okay, how much are we changing from the minimum, like from the middle? Middle in this case is 0. How far up and how far down am I going? And it should be the same amount, because if it's middle, it should be equidistant from the top, the maximum and minimum. So for the most basic one, for a generic graph, my amplitude is 1. And next up, what we have is the period. The length of one full cycle, or how long it takes to repeat a point. And repeating a point is a bit trickier of a definition to understand, but I like the one full cycle better. So one full cycle in this of a circle is 2 pi. So generically, the period is 2 pi. And looking at a graph, I go up, I go down, I go up, and we see like this is kind of the same exact point. I'm starting to go up again, I go down, this one I'm going down. It kind of loops. If I take this section and shift it over to the right, it matches up perfectly. And this will actually go like that, and it would actually match up perfectly. But repeating point might be a bit tricky at times, because this point is 0, 0. The y value is 0. I go up, I go down, and pi over 0. Pi 0, that's also 0. But it's not the exact point, because this one is moving up, and this one is moving down. So be a bit careful. I like to think of it as one full cycle. And these are generic points. My amplitude is 1 for the basic function. My period is 2 pi for the basic function. So before the next video on your own, please try graphing cosine of theta.